Thank you for being here tonight. We're here for City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and we'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Solomon. Here. Roberts. Here. Stroman. Here. Armstrong.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Lehman. Here. Ham. Here. Evans. Here. Roseland. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our invocation. Is Fred McDonald in the audience? Okay, seeing no Fred McDonalds, then I would ask us to just stand and have a moment of silence. There's a lot of tragedy around the world. It's the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, also the continual earthquakes in Turkey and the Syria area. So we'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Would there be a motion by City Council? Second. Motion by Armstrong, second by Jones to adopt the agenda as written. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Next is general public comment. We don't have any speaker requests for general public comment, so we'll move on to non-public hearing items, items 1 through 41. We'll open public comment on items 1 through 37. We have a few speaker request forms on items 16 and 17. And the speakers tonight, when I call your name, you'll have 3 minutes, each of you, to speak. And you can watch these lights up here to see how you're doing. So we'll start first with Brent Long.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I am here to speak in favor of adopting the non-union wage scale. I am joined here with a few others from my department today, a couple of other division chiefs and a section chief and a battalion chief. And we're all here just to talk about our staff. You know, we're just looking out for, we have administrative staff who are non-union, we have billing staff, mechanics, our public information officer, we've got a couple educators, and all of these are non-union staff. We're very excited for the possibility to be able to, you know, give them a little bit of a bump and keep them competitive with their local area. And I just want to say that I thank everyone for showing up tonight, braving some of the road conditions and the wind chill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Amanda Lee.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Lee. I'm the executive coordinator at the police department. I have the pleasure of working with these fine ladies and gentlemen every single day. I wanted to come and talk in support of 16 and 17, the non-union wage study and the COLA that's going to be up on your agenda. I wanted to share a few thoughts tonight on my experience being a part of the steering committee for the non-union wage study, which was requested not only by city employees and city leadership, but was also approved on consent by the members of this Common Council on July 18th, when you approved the funding for the contract with the Gallagher Consulting Group. I'm happy to report this was an incredibly collaborative process. In the beginning, we had a chance to meet with the Gallagher team in person with employees from our respective departments. We discussed our roles, who we supervised, what our work was. We dove in and explained our day-to-day processes and got into the weeds on our work. It was not just handing over job descriptions. Along with the department directors, we provided advice on what positions should be used for their very thorough benchmark position research. We provided input on which locations to use as comparators. Then the steering committee met online every other Friday for months with Gallagher City HR to talk about all the things wage-related after they had data for us to look at. They showed us their work, and we had the opportunity to dive in again and ask more questions. They were professional researchers, data collectors, and Excel wizards who knew their field, took their work seriously, and took our feedback into consideration at each meeting. Every day I see how hard city employees work. These non-union employees are the experts in their fields. They test blood from DUI stops. They are the commanders who show up to oversee awful crime scenes at 3 a.m. They are the acting risk manager who helps my hurt officers work through the complicated workman's comp process so they can get healed and back on the street. They are the battalion chiefs who oversee crews of EMTs and firefighters and keep their stations running smoothly. They are the IT guys who never tell us it's just user error. They just help us because they know we need it. They are the finance employees who help every city department be fiscally responsible. I could go on and talk about the work ethic in each department because I am lucky enough to see it every day. Our employees really are our greatest resource here at the city, and I am hopeful that you vote to approve this new wage scale tonight so they will feel recognized and appreciated because they all work very hard to keep the city running smoothly every day without politics. I urge your support for the new scale and the COLA. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Doyle.
Is this the right place to complain about the roads not being plowed yet?
Yes.
Mayor, City Council, my name's Tim Doyle. I'm a lieutenant with the police department. Coming up on 16 years. I don't think I can say it much better than Amanda did, but I will just say that this was a long process. There's a lot of very intelligent, knowledgeable folks who put a lot of time into this. I know in my group, this fixed some compression issues that really needed to be fixed after the union contracts went through. And I mean, you have police and firefighters in the audience here together agreeing on something, so it's got to be a good thing because that doesn't happen very often. But seriously, this is a good thing. I think this is a good way for the council to show those non-union employees that you appreciate the job that they do day in and day out for the city. And thank you for what you do also.
Okay, thank you. And that's all the speaker requests we have for the public hearing, so we'll close the public comment period. Move on to consent items 1 through 37. Council have any items to pull? Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull item 16, please.
Okay. Bill Evans. Okay, item 17. Anyone else? All right, then, seeing that there's, pardon me? Okay, we have a motion by Armstrong to approve the balance of the consent calendar, which would be with the exception of 16-17, second by Lance Lehman. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16. Approve the implementation of the proposed non-union pay scale. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to request or make a motion to split the scale for the mayor into a separate consideration. If I can get a second and retain the floor.
Roman, go ahead.
Well, given that I'm a candidate for mayor, I just thought it would be inappropriate for me to vote on this matter, and so I would like to abstain. While I have the floor, though, I would just want to say I'm supportive of the wage study. We've been calling it for years, so I want to thank, first of all, this council and Human Resources for getting it done. I think it's good to base our information on data, and then from there to have systematic increases that are competitive with the market. That's really the spirit of this, is we want to be competitive, not only to show appreciation for our talented leadership and staff, but also to make sure that we can recruit and retain the best staff on behalf of the city. So with that, I will yield. Thank you.
Okay. Bill Evans.
Thank you. Do we have a representative here from the people that did the study, the consulting study, the wage study? Nobody's here? Well, maybe, Mr. Street, you can answer these questions then. As you know, several of us council members were in attendance there at the Civic Center when this was presented. And I have a few questions. I mean, I was a public employee for many, many years, and I believe people need to be paid well. So this is not my point. But I do also think we need to be realistic about things. When they first did the presentation, they had surveyed several surrounding cities, correct? Like 30-some, and of that, how many, 14, 15 responded?
17, yes.
Okay, and they brought up a figure, and there's a little confusion in my mind about what that figure was. But in my recollection, it seemed that their finding, and much to most people's surprise, was that our wages were, and I believe the figure was 17%, one way higher or lower than surrounding communities. So which was that?
What you're referring to is that our old scale, at the end of the scale, was 17% over the end of the comparator scale.
So currently, our employees are actually well compensated in comparison with surrounding communities. Would that be a correct assumption?
The scale is 17% over that. That doesn't mean there's any human beings at the end of our scale. At the end of our old scale, you have to be here for 25 to 30 years because it's a 36-step scale. And so if you were to get 1 step per year, you would have to be here 30-some years. So we do not currently have many employees at that. Our average time in position right now is 4.5 years. So at the beginning of our scales, we were 3% below our comparators, and at the end, we were 17% above. And so that's what this new scale is attempting to correct.
Okay. As you remember, I made a comment that perhaps these higher level positions up in the 50s, how high does this go, 57% or 54?
55 steps.
55 steps, okay. Perhaps it would be wise to separate those out, some of these higher level ones, because I think it distorts the overall appearance of their salaries that we're paying to city employees. And to the public, it may be a bit distorted in terms of how well they're paid, appearing much higher, for instance. I also have some questions about the top of our scale and highest paid positions. And I don't have any problems with people that do these jobs. I think they're all exceptional. What is the compensation, for instance, for our airport manager currently?
I do not have that on hand, but I know it's step 48. I believe it's $161,000.
Okay, it's in there. And so we're talking comparable jobs. And according to the new scale, it would be up around what, 200 and?
Well, okay. So the idea is this scale provides a runway for the future.
Yeah, I know how a
Rapid
scale
City.
works because I worked in the school district for 40 years, so I'm well aware of that. I'm
So
well aware
the
of steps
top-
and lanes and everything else.
Okay.
But we also were trying to compare apples with apples.
Sure.
And I believe Mr. Lehman told me earlier today that the airport manager in Bozeman, for instance, earns, what was it, Lance, $153,000. That's what they pay him. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lehman. That airport, by the way, has twice as many flights as ours, twice as many gates as ours, giant ramps and everything. So it's actually a bigger job. And this is my problem with some of these things in this particular salary schedule, is I don't think it's been well studied. I think that we have had no discussion at all at the council level. And this is the employee salaries in the city are the largest single thing we spend money on every year. Would you agree?
I have no idea.
I think that's close, if not. And so I think this is an important feature of the way the tax dollars are spent. And I would suggest that we maybe need to step back for a moment, have a few weeks or days to discuss this with other council members. With you, we have not had a study session. We have not had a work session to discuss any of this. It just all of a sudden appeared. I assume something this important would receive a lot of scrutiny from the city council.
Respectfully, I sent an email on February 6th asking to meet with each and every one of you, asking whether it was individually, small sessions, however you wanted to do it.
That's true.
I met with one person.
That's true, but I was saying this all of a sudden appears without any input from the city council or discussion. And I think we've discussed at length many other, features of the city that are of far less importance and far less impact on the taxpayer's dollar than this. I think it requires us to step back for a couple weeks, have these discussions. And since I also talked about number 17, I don't believe in necessarily 4% raises across the board. I believe in giving everybody, especially people at the bottom who don't make these high wages, a $2,000 raise at the bottom may help that person. But to me, if you gave everybody in the city a $4,000 raise, that's much more fair, because $160,000 salary or something, that doesn't change a person's life all that much. But that $4,000 for a person down earning $50,000 could be very impactful, and I think that's the majority of our things. So I think all of this deserves a little bit more discussion. That's all I'm going to say. And for that reason, I won't be voting for that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Roseland.
I just want to thank Mr. Strout and the Stern Committee for all the time you put into getting this together. I know it was a difficult situation. You worked hard to get to it, and all our employees of Rapid City really need to know that City Council is supporting them more than just words. It's financial and in many other ways that we support you. And I will be voting for the proposed non-union pay scale and also the 4% COLA that I think everybody deserves in this room. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will have to agree with Councilman Roseland on his words. I want to compliment him on those being real, what is taking place. And then the other thing I want to address is that a lot of the non-union personnel, especially in the upper steps, have to do a lot of weekend work and evenings and odd hours. And so I want to keep them incentivized to show up on those awful times. And some of the personnel that talk to me say that they at times have to go out at 3 o'clock in the morning to a very serious accident or any kind of a condition that that the normal person or an average person like me would be very reluctant about attending. So it's my way of saying thank you to the personnel that are involved in this. As far as holding off on this, I can't agree with that. We've had plenty of opportunity to engage in the discussions. We've also had opportunities, many opportunities, to talk to the employees on these issues and get their feedback on it. Plus, I know I've sent Mr. Strout several questions, and I was looking forward to having that conversation from either the dais or a work session or even a small group session. I was looking forward to having that opportunity. So it was all availed to us. Every opportunity to have more discussion on this. What did you say? Went back to February at least, if not further back?
The presentation by Gallagher was January 20th, and I sent this body the information on February 6th.
Thank you. And I'm not sure why somebody would have not taken you up on that opportunity. I think that was a good time to have that discussion or asking questions over that. But I want to address the rest of the employees. There are some of the employees that work really weird shifts, and they're weird to me, but thank you for doing that. And you folks go out there at strange hours, and again, that's compared to me, what I have to put up with. So, and I think you deserve to be compensated accordingly. And I'm not only thinking of you, but the people that have to do a lot of this volunteer work within the community, and you share that information with the public that such as these neighborhood watch groups that you go to and the police officers that show up, or the downtown business groups that you folks show up for, and you don't have to, you really don't have to, but I thank you for doing that. And this is one way for me to say thank you for doing all of that work. With that, Mayor, I will yield and look forward to having a good, solid vote on this and supporting all the non-union employees. Thank you.
Okay. Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the item with the removal of the mayor's classification.
Second by Pat Jones. Make a motion? Oh, you should have spoke up. Okay. All right.
You can have it, Jason.
So I have 2 motions, 2 seconds. That makes it even more good. Okay. Okay, sorry. Whose turn is it? Jason Solomon.
Thank you. I just wanted to chime back in based on the comments that were made. I found that this process was very transparent. One of the more transparent processes we've had. It's not subjective, it's objective. The scale has a beginning, middle, and end. Not everybody's starting at the end of the scale, and I think it's really important to note that too. Here's the deal. You got to be competitive. It's actually more expensive to cheap out on this because it costs 2.5 times more to train and hire, or hire and train in that order, a new employee than to keep your really good ones. And the fact of the matter is we need to do our best to keep our high-performing talent. And one of the ways that you do that is by making sure that they're paid competitively. So I know it's not always popular, and I'll be honest, I had a bunch of questions for Mr. Strout, and he provided me a lot of information. I wanted comparables. I wanted to know a lot of information. He provided much of that to the rest of the council, though I do appreciate that. I think that was good. This is based on data, and at the end of the day, that's what we have to base it on. This is wise stewardship for Rapid City. And so it may not be popular because there can be sticker shock if all you do is look at the high end of a scale, but that's often, none of us really ever start at the high end of a scale. We earn our way there and if we get 20 or 30 years out of somebody and they get to the high end of the scale, absolutely we should reward that. That's a lot of institutional knowledge. And so that's what you want to have in order to have a thriving city that is sustainable and growing and a healthy place to work. So again, I just wanted to kind of come in defense of that. And this is our opportunity as a council to talk about it. Not only have we had opportunity to talk about it here, but this is the time. If you have a problem, now's the time to bring it up. To continue to kick it down the road when we've had ample time, I think is also irresponsible. So I'm happy that we will get this to a vote tonight. Hopefully it'll pass. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nick, since you're up here. How many people roughly are there in the non-union?
210.
210,000. I think when I was reading, 210, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the cost to implement this. I was reading through somewhere that the cost was going to be 263,000. To put that in perspective, that's about 1/100th of our budget. So, I think that it's a very good thing to be doing this. The cost of it, you can tell by what it's going to take to implement it, that it's not top-heavy. A lot of this, it looks like, is going into that lower range, middle range. So anyway, from what I've read, I support it 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the pay scale with the exception of the mayor's placement. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Me. Motion passes with 1 no for Mr. Evans. Okay, now for the second half of that question, approving the pay scale with the mayor's placement. Okay, motion by Jones, second. Second, Roseland. Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a problem with the motion to, although I would, when I look at this, I do have a problem, I guess, because when I look at this chart, the mayor is on the lowest, his low scale, his or her low scale is 28 out of 55 positions. And that's the same with the high end of the mayor's scale. And there are positions that are not even director positions that are on a scale higher than the mayor's position. And I think just as a matter of course, no matter who the mayor is, that the mayor's salary should be in the next category at least. And with this particular mayor, I know during the budgeting process last summer, we talked about how the mayor's salary had not changed for something like 10 or 20 years. And the mayor is making less than several deputies or non-director personnel. And we talked at that time, I think we agreed that the budget should have a mayor's salary of $120,000. And I would like to get that taken care of tonight, and I would like that to be retroactive to January 1st when we talked about it for the 2023 budget, that the mayor's salary would be $120,000 beginning January 1, 2023. So if that takes a substitute motion, I make a substitute motion for that.
Okay, I'll take that motion and second. Friendly amendment perhaps to that motion would be, rather than choose the arbitrary number, to choose on the scale an existing number that's close to that figure. Okay, Nick Strout, go ahead.
So because the range of this position, of which we try to keep the integrity of the ranges, is, and I'm sorry, I apologize, it is 12 steps. I would ask the motion to be 34, 40, okay, to be step 34 to 46 on our new scale. Because so if you're shifting the mayor's scale from where it is now, and you're keeping the integrity of the range, and you want it to be 120,000, it would be step 34 to step 46 would be the new range for the mayor's position.
Okay, was that the intent of the motion maker, to change the scale of the mayor, or to start to put this particular mayor on
I see.
the current scale?
Well, I wanted both, Mr. Mayor. I think that the scale should reflect a higher low end and a higher high end than currently on the chart. And the number that I was taking from last summer falls within that range for a particular implementation in 2023.
Okay, so Mr. Strout, for everyone's knowledge, what is the range on that scale that you just brought up?
Sure. The new range for the scale would be $120,046 at the low end to $171,158 at the high end. That's keeping the same range integrity. And I apologize, I jumped the gun because Mr. Stroman and I had this conversation, and I knew that's where he wanted to go with this. So that would be moving the range, and then we would move the incumbent with that the same way we're moving every other incumbent with their new ranges.
Okay, is that consistent with the motion maker and the seconder?
It is.
Pat? Yes. Okay, all right, then we have a motion and a second then, if I understand it, to change the mayor's pay scale to what you said,
34 to 46.
4 to 46.
And placing the mayor on that scale at step 1.
Okay, Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Nick, I'm just kind of looking at you again, just to kind of make sure that everybody is on the same page here. So, okay. I just wanted to express the gratitude to the council members that are making this motion, because Currently, the mayor is being compensated at the same rate as the landfill superintendent, which I think is way out of line. So this will bring this, well, this wage study helps bring this back into line. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that point. Do you have anything else to add?
And if I
Nick?
may, I will commend Mayor Allender. He had nothing to do with this process. He refused to participate in this process. And so I can honestly say this data was not influenced by him at all. So I just want to put that out there, that this is the first time we're discussing the mayor's range. That was not done through him.
And I think it's very appropriate for the public to hear those comments, and I want to thank Councilman Stroman for bringing this up, and appreciate the reminder. Thank you. I'll support it.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What exactly is the motion on the floor?
So if I might, we are going to adjust the salary range for the mayor's position to beginning step 34, which is $120,046, with an ending step of 46, which is $171,158, and we will place the mayor at the beginning step of that new range.
I think I also heard something from Mr. Stroman about making it retroactive to January 1st. I won't support it if we do that. I will support it if it'll go forward when the new wage goes through.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jesse Ham.
So a couple things. I'm with the notion of not making this retroactive, not against anybody in particular today, but I want to make sure that we move forward rather than going backward in this process. I don't want to set that precedent, but more importantly, what with that range of 120 and 46 to 171, beginning at step 34, was it?
Correct.
When we elect a new mayor, are they always going to start at step 34? I guess would be my question.
That would be the default. If this body decided to put it somewhere else, it would have to be within 34 to 46. But the default, upon election day, HR would place them at step 34.
Okay. My sense is that this role is much larger than what we're paying for, and I agree with the council folks who have mentioned that. My concern would be over the next 5 to 10 years, we might be topping it a little bit skinny. So 171 might not get us a qualified candidate 10 years from now. So that's something to consider as we move forward.
Absolutely. And for this body, and we talked a little bit about legal and finance, part of the process that we've learned is we've taught members of my team how to maintain this throughout. So this isn't just going to be dropped on us and put on a shelf to gather dust. We're going to maintain that. So in 10 years from now, hopefully that salary range reflects what's going to attract candidates at that time.
Okay, so it won't be static for another 25. That's what I was concerned about. Okay.
That's our goal.
Very good. I yield.
Yeah, I just want to check with the motion maker one more time, make sure we have the motion that you intended. So if you could restate the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. My motion is to move the mayor to the 34 to 46 bracket, which is low end of 120,046 to 171,158. And my motion was to make it retroactive. We've had 2 council people speak out against retroactivity. I guess I can remove that part of it if that will get us more unanimity. So I would amend the motion, I guess, to that extent. That would not be retroactive.
Okay, same second? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I brought that up had nothing to do with the current mayor involved. It had to do with if we were going to do that for the mayor right now, I think it would have only been fair to do it for everybody else that was in this process. And
so moved.
Anyway, I just wanted to explain it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. With an abstention from Solomon. Oh, sorry. Item 17, authorize a cost of living adjustment for non-union employees of 4% on June 18th, 2023. Bill Evans.
As I've already pointed out, I believe these kind of adjustments should not necessarily be done on a percentage basis. I believe they should be done on a weighted basis for the people that actually could use the money more. I think the people down near the lower steps of the current salary schedule are certainly able to get more use out of, $3,000-4,000 than the people that are up in the mid $100,000 range. So I don't see, and I believe $6,400 to somebody making over $150,000 is not as impactful on their life as, say, a $4,000 raise on the base pay to people down in that lower portion of our salary schedule. And that's the reason I do not support this particular version of the cost of living increase, just so you know how I think. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you very much. I applaud the work that was done on this, the collaborativeness across so many departments, so many people. It's wonderful to see this happening. I would like to move approval of item 17.
Second by Solomon. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment. Just to clarify a little bit on this, perceived disparity from the upper echelon within the city is that I know of at least one director, and there might be others, but I know of at least one director that wanted to make sure that his employees were fully compensated before he was. So he took a little bit of a delay on getting his raise or appropriate compensation. So I think the directors are doing fair by this, and but I totally understand the argument. But at this point, I think the directors have been doing a good job, and there's no reason why they have to be separated out. So fully applaud what you're trying to do. And I think this wage study also took that into consideration as well. And if you have any other comments, Nick?
No, I mean, the director team has been great in this process. They've been selfless. They've kept the focus on their employees. They wanted to make sure that this isn't about them. We were all 12 of us were just placed on the new scale. There was no additional compensation given to anybody other than simply being placed on the new scale. So this was not about the 12 of us, and we wanted to the person, wanted to make sure people know this is about their team and about the people that do the work. And so we're just trying to get this over the finish line.
Thank you, and you said it much better than I, so thank you for doing that. I yield.
We have a motion on the floor and a second for approval of item 17. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? One no from Mr. Evans. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Takes us through consent. On to non-consent items, 38 through 41. There are no speaker requests on these items, so we will not have a public comment period. We'll start under ordinances, item 38. Second reading of ordinance number 6562, an ordinance changing the name of the Rapid City Human Relations Commission to the Rapid City Community Relations Commission, along with some miscellaneous cleanup of the ordinance by amending Chapter 2.64 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Armstrong, second by Ham. All in favor of approval of 38, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 39, first reading of ordinance 6561, an ordinance amendment to amend sections 17.12.050, 17.12.070, and 17.40.050 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to the height of certain structures. Motion to approve Solomon, second Roberts. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 40, first reading of ordinance number 6563 regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2023. To approve Nordstrom, second by Lehman. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Community development items, item 41. A request by Renner Associates LLC for Nick Emery for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 33, 34 of Block 3 and Lot 27 of Block 5 of Robbinsdale Terrace subdivision, generally described as being located north of the northern terminus of Grandview Drive. Pat Jones.
Thank you very much. Like to move to approve and keep the floor, if I may. Yes, yeah, approval of stipulations. Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve with stipulations, second by Laura Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So that area is on a very steep hillside, and the access from Grandview down is, I don't think, possible. So I'm.
Yes.
So, Vicki, can you talk to us a little bit about access and how they will access the lots that are planning on being developed there?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Please.
So they will be extending that road to the south. It will have to meet acceptable grades. The Public Works team have looked at it and determined that the preliminary design does work. We have not yet received the construction plans. That's in the second step of the plating process, known as the Development Engineering Plan application.
But there isn't plan to come from Grandview down the hill, is there, into this area? Because where Grandview comes to a dead end has signs and markers blocking it off, and it's extremely steep going down there. I used to sled there all the time when I was a little kid. We call it the Jones Divot that's still found there if you look for it carefully.
Mr. Mayor, so the access is actually at the northern terminus of where Grandview Drive currently terminates. And again, there are homes that access off of that driveway right now, and all three approaches are going to be one right after another. This item actually took a little time to come to you because the Public Works team had to work very closely with the consultant's engineer to get the utilities and access correct, because they have limited space in order for that to occur.
Well, access from Indiana won't be a problem because there's an easement there that's wide enough to go up the hill. But I'm really concerned about access from Grandview down the hill. It's extremely steep. And I don't know how that can be made unsteep.
So it's actually both. There is a lot that's being accessed off of Indiana, which is the larger portion.
Yeah, the Indiana access would be no problem.
And then if you can get to the end of Grandview Drive right now, there'll be one driveway to the east and one driveway to the west. And that lot line will start right at the terminus of Grandview Drive. There'll be a turnaround, which is required, but they're not extending the street further to the north.
So they'll just be driveways coming off Grandview?
Correct.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think it's going to be very challenging because that's going to be extremely steep coming over the hill there.
Mr. Mayor, if I might. You know, one of the beautiful things about our community is that we are so three-dimensional. And you've probably noticed going to visit friends around town, our streets are designed to one standard, and then our driveways have an allowance. In working with any future building permit, the fire department will look at this very closely. We have to make sure that if we get emergency access onto this lot, that they can get turned around and back out. So depending upon where that home is located, they may have to provide a fire apparatus turnaround on site. We anticipate that they'll build very close to Grandview Drive, but those slopes on that driveway can exceed a slope that would otherwise be allowed on a public street.
So the driveway can be steeper?
Yes.
Than a street can?
Correct.
Okay. Probably will be.
Agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for Director Fisher, please.
Yes.
Vicki, we've had some issues with this area in the past. and a lot of concerns, and especially from the public, from the neighbors on there. So this is only the first step in a several-step process before we see a final product.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. That is correct. So we've had other developers come in past years looking at putting multiple single-family homes and really trying to cut down this hill. There was issues with soil stability, as we all know, those of us that live in the Robbinsdale area.
Yep.
It's an issue that we all live with. And so to see a plan where they're just putting in 3 lots is really getting that additional housing that we need in this community right now, but it's doing it in a way that it is going to have a minimal impact on the existing contours that we're working with today. And yes, I have had many people say that they've sled on this property as a child and plan on continuing to do so even if people live there. So it's a tradition in Rapid City.
And as was mentioned earlier by a colleague, is that this is going to be a good snow hill as well. So my major concern is that soil is very greasy and very slick, especially when it gets wet. So I look forward to seeing the stipulations being complied with. So they will be forwarding that information on to us.
Mr. Mayor, the credit needs to go to Dale Tech and his team. They put a lot of energy into the construction plans to ensure that they do abide by the infrastructure design criteria manual, and they'll do so on this one as well.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I yield.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of item 41, approval with stipulations. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing items 42 through 49. There are no speaker requests on these items, so we'll go directly to consent public hearing items 42 through 49. Would there be a motion? Move to approve. Motion to approve Lehman, second by Jones. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to the bill list. Item 50, we'll go to Interim Finance Director Tracy Davis.
There are no changes to the bill list, so the amount is $8,387,720.68.
Motion to approve Solomon, second by Nordstrom. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn Nordstrom. Second Jones. Any objection? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.